Well, the demands in financial sector professionals can be very taxing. And for more, I'm joined by business psychology expert and self-proclaimed shrink for entrepreneurs, Peter Shallard. Peter, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Peter, as we saw there, according to the National Occupational Mortality Surveillance, financial service workers are 1.5 times more likely to die by suicide than the national average. Does that seem like an accurate statistic to you?
I think it is accurate, and it's typical of an industry where workers are under an enormous amount of pressure and dealing with an array of different coping mechanisms and ever-increasing work hours and mental health issues that relate to that.
Well, how does this compare to other professions?
I think physicians in the U.S. is the highest beyond the national average in terms of suicide statistics, and it's remarkable in its similarity. Again, we're seeing an issue where people are working incredibly long hours. There's a lot of similarities. The only difference being physicians are a little bit higher, which probably relates to the life and death scenarios that they're actually dealing with.
Okay, you mentioned the hours, but is there something about the personality type that the finance industry attracts? Alpha males tend to dominate in Wall Street, and they're probably less likely to be in touch with their emotions, in touch with their feelings, and probably less likely to seek help and talk about things that are bothering them. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely. In these industries, there's a sort of an attitude that stoicism and that masculine, we can handle it attitude is actually what's required of a winner, and that culture inside of these organizations is a systemic part of why this is happening.
Well, in the in the movie Wolf of Wall Street, we saw high stakes, high risk, high parting. It's the very decadent, male-centric Wall Street of the 80s was encapsulated in that film. Is this still the Wall Street of today?
I think these days the partying has decreased a little bit, and what we're seeing a bit more of is an increase of performance-enhancing drug use and those kinds of problems. So there's even more pressure than ever. People are buckling down and trying to work harder, and yeah, there are still some problems that are associated with that type of excess, but they're more focused than ever on results.
Well, how much of a factor is drug use? There was speculation that cocaine was very dominant on Wall Street in the 80s. Now, apparently, it's more the likes of focus drugs like Adderall. Is this a factor in these higher suicide rates in this profession?
Yeah, the danger of those types of drugs is that they often fly under the radar. There's a pretty healthy stigma against recreational use of drugs, but because people are using these drugs to perform, it doesn't feel recreational, and so they can often get into similar bad habits, but thinking that, hey, this is all for, for the job.
Is it because of the money? Is it because there's a lot of money to be made, a lot of money to be lost, and for the most part, these people are responsible for ginormous sums of money?
I think that when you look at the finance sector, you're looking at a type of person who puts their locus of control, the way that they measure their sense of self-worth, in the results outside of themselves. They're judging themselves based on how well they do, bottom line results. So yes, that is where the pressure comes from.
Well, are Wall Street firms doing anything to address this then?
From what I hear, the big firms have the kind of standard 24/7 support, tools and services in place. But because of the culture that we discussed, that sort of masochistic work ethic, that feeling that if it's too hot in the kitchen, you best get out, right? Mm-hmm. That culture means that a lot of employees consider those services to be a bit of a joke.
Is there something that firms should be doing then? Should they be making these mandatory, for example? Would that help?
I think that what we need to see is a commitment from the top down with these firms to basically end the false dichotomy that you can either have high-performing employees or really great mental health conditions. And until that kind of very assumption is challenged, we won't see much change on that statistic.
Well, other than the typical Wall Street bank that we're discussing, what about the new finance form, which is entrepreneurs, which are these big risk takers with these big startups? These personalities are obviously not very risk averse. They're putting it all on the line. Is this a sector where depression is very prevalent as well?
I work with entrepreneurs every single day, and these people are under an enormous amount of pressure. There's very little research and really any people considering sort of trends and statistics across that group. But I know of one out of UCSF, which shows that 49% of entrepreneurs are checking the box for having mental health issues, and the #1 is depression.
So what's the solution, Peter?
The great thing about Silicon Valley and the tech scene in the US particularly is that there are a number of people who are getting into coaching, who are getting into therapy, who are looking at more esoteric forms of personal development. There's a curiosity around that, which is really, really helpful, and it's something we need to see grow and hopefully other industries embrace as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter Shallard from the Shrink for Entrepreneurs.